Hi guys, welcome to episode 28 of Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today I want to talk about my first night at Output, the famous club in New York City. Back in 2013, Doombot got the idea to go and see John Digweed and Naveen G at Output in New York City. I had heard about it through the grapevine, talking to my friends, and everybody was saying how it was like the best club that New York had, and it, Brooklyn was up and coming, and it was this whole thing. There was this whole buzz about how great Output was. So I kind of had these big expectations going into the night. Doombot was always like a big Digweed fan, and I was kind of like riding sidecar. Anytime that we went to see Digweed, it was like, yeah, I'll go, but like generally Digweed's not my jam. But as it turns out, the star of the night that night wasn't Digweed, in my opinion, no offense, John, but it was Naveen G, the opening DJ. So kind of to set the stage for the night, Doombot and I generally would get to parties early. We would try to get there right in the beginning so that we could watch the opening DJs, because we like to watch the openers kind of like unfold the night. And at least, I don't know if this is still the case in New York now, but back in the day in 2013, the opening DJs were very thoughtful about not going too high in energy level and kind of like blowing the room up early. So there was this tendency for like the well-run super clubs to have the music a little bit low and the beats per minute subdued and the vibe kind of contained, so that later on in the night the music and the room and the night could kind of like explode and blossom. So Doombot and I get to the bar. There was a bar right down the street from Output, like almost on the same block, or like right around the corner. We got there at like some obscenely early time, like 10 or something like that. So we're sitting there hanging out, having fries and tater tots and whatever, and throwing a couple beers back. And we went over to Output. So we were the first, I would say we were within the first 10 people in line. And I remember everybody that was there was super excited because it was a Digweed party. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Digweed party, but those fans, they're like rabid. They're hell-bent on seeing Digweed. Like, they're starting the night here and they're closing it when the lights come on. And that's kind of the vibe that it had. So it was fun being in line with people that were like that intense about going into this club. So as you can imagine, the energy and the anticipation and all the excitement was building, and it was like one of those just really beautiful clubbing moments where you're like, this is gonna be awesome. So we go past the door staff. They were really friendly. They had everything organized. Like they knew that we were coming, that they had our tickets. So they scan our tickets, whatever, check our ID, and in we go. So we walk into Output, and it kind of had like a little meandering path, and you'd walk into the main room. There was a bar on your left, the dance floor was on your right, and if you made a hard right, there was like an L-shaped couch that faced the DJ booth, which was kind of like directly in front of you, but elevated. Under that DJ booth, they had this massive bass bin, the biggest bass bin that I've ever seen. I mean, at least 6 feet wide, and I don't know, 4 feet high, 5 feet high. And you looked into this bass bin, and it had like, it was like artistically built. Like, it had these like staggered, like, I don't know, like metal edges in it, and they were vertical and horizontal, like kind of going towards the middle. So when you looked at it, it looked like it just like went in, like a vortex that came in. It was the coolest bass bin ever, and you could just feel this like solid thump coming out of it. Like, you knew it wasn't turned up all the way, but it was just like, you knew that it was at like 30% power, and you were like, man, when this thing goes to 100, this room's going off. So we walk in. I didn't know Naveen G at this point, but he's playing a track that I knew, and it was this one here. It was this Donato Dozzy record that had come out in 2012. I think this is Claudio Fabrianisi and Donato Dozzy, and he was dropping Fade Out. Like I said, we were one of the first 5 people to get in the club that night. So this was the first track of the night, and I was like, man, I know that's a Dozzy record, and it kind of like got me thinking that Naveen was going to be good. I was like, man, if he's opening with this is going to be a great night. And boy, was I right. So Doombot and I head back to this couch, which was like the most obvious place to sit in the club if you were like a Train Spotting fan. It's like, let's just kick back here and throw some drinks back. And if you want to like an analogy of what it was like for us sitting on that couch, like I said, it's probably the best seat in the house if you want to chill and be able to watch the DJ booth and have perfect sound, because it was centered more or less in front of the DJ booth. And it reminded me of the scene in Independence Day where they fly into the alien ship, Will Smith and that scientist guy, I can't remember his name, or just Jeff Goldblum? Yeah, Goldblum. So they fly into the alien ship and they dock, and they're like held there, and it's like those two face to face with this alien that's kind of like controlling the console and not really moving. Like he just has like this very like stoic appearance to him. And that's really like a good metaphor for our experience sitting on this couch. So it's like Naveen G has control of the night now, and you two fools are stuck here. And it turned out to be such like the perfect vibe for me. So Naveen played this very subdued, like low tempo set to start out. And by the way, I'm gonna link you to this set. He has an actual live recording to this on his SoundCloud. It's one of the most beautiful opening sets I've ever seen in terms of diversity of the track selection and everything. So I'm gonna take you through the tracks that I own from that night as he played them. And like I said, the first one was that Donata Dozzy record. He went into an Area record, the techno producer Area, which was like a DJ tool. It's called Bourbon Skies. I'm not gonna spend too much time on that track. It's just more of like a loop and a DJ tool. But then track 3, he drops Edanticonf Planet, which is a really, really sick dub techno track. It has this bubble popping sound. It sounds like bubbles popping like left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and rapid fire. I think this was the point where Doombot and I looked at each other and we were like, holy shit, this is gonna be epic. And we're looking up in the booth, and there's Naveen. You could just see his head sticking out over top. He's got both headphones on, like on both ears. And it just looked like he was supremely confident in how he was gonna play that night. Like he had a plan and all he had to do was execute it. You know what I mean? So it was totally sick. Then, straight after Edanticonf drops this, which I consider to be one of the most epic minimal tracks really ever. This is Axel Boman, who you got to keep an eye on Axel Boman Productions. He makes some really wonky, weird stuff, man. And his track here, this is on Hypercolor. The track is called Television People. It sounds like a Matthew Johnson kind of out, like a ode to Matthew Johnson, where he's got like the weird bleepy minimal that sounds maybe like his Walking on the Hands That Follow, or something on that record.
To create a mood.
really cool stuff in this. There's like little laser shots going off here and there. I highly recommend this. And it was like that sequence of Edanticonf into this was just devastating. Like I couldn't believe it. And I've heard Philly DJs play this record. I've heard 2 different DJs play this. It's kind of like a sleeper, but anybody that plays this, as soon as I hear it, I'm like, that guy knows what he's doing, because it's just such an awesome record. And it's kind of like a little bit obscure too. Heading further into the night, Naveen dropped this one here. This is Matthew Burton and Nick Lawson, Take Me Away. And he dropped the, I'm trying to get that to focus for you. He dropped the Shaw Tracks remix, which is just like a real nice kind of low-key thumper. This got some pretty good reviews on Discogs. The theme of Naveen's set was that it was understated. And like I said, when I started talking in this episode, he designed it so that he wasn't going to go over a certain energy threshold. I don't even know if he went over maybe 120 beats per minute. He could have been operating below that the entire time. So for 2 to 3 hours, he was just dropping these like mellow tracks that just kind of like meandered left and right, and he was catching you off guard, like dropping vocals and all kinds of stuff. It was like a very diverse mix. Later on, and this happened in 2013. Just reminding you that this was the heyday for Avatism. So Naveen drops Johnny Cruz, Devil's Hex, Avatism, and Jeremy Caulfield remix. And at that point, Doombot and I already knew all the Avatism tracks because we were obsessed with them. And it was like, man, like how can this set get any better? You know, he's just absolutely crushing it. Later on in the night, this might have been like an hour until this song here came up. This is Closer Music, 1, 2, 3, No Gravity, all the way back from 2004. So Naveen was playing current music, but also dropping some gems, like just totally catching people off guard. I mean, something from 2004. And this is a bit of a sleeper hit. People that are into like old tech house will know this. And it's the Ewan Pearson remix.
I'm floating free, I'm floating free, I'm floating free, I'm floating free, I'm floating free. Between the stars, 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 between the stars. There is no night or day, no night or day, no night or day, no night or day. Planet E is far away, is far away, is far away, is far away. Where M is where stay is, where stay is, where stay is, where stay is.
Awesome vocal here. And I think you can actually get this on Discogs for about 20 bucks. So check this out. Definitely worth picking up. Still later on in the night, Naveen drops Bob Moses. This is the first single that Bob Moses released. It's called Hands to Hold. It's on Scissor and Thread.
It's a poison. 'Cause you and I have forgotten that love is a put on. And time only goes on. Love, it's a poison. When you and I turn to nothing.
This is a slow track. I think what Naveen did was he took the vocal from this and like I think he had a pre-edit made where he put it over a J Tripwire record, if I remember correctly. But I mean, Bob Moses' Hands to Hold was their breakout song. This was their breakout EP. It was totally awesome. And again, just showing you some of the diversity that Naveen was bringing in that set to drop like a soon to be very popular vocal on top of this, you know, techno / minimal set that he'd been working the whole time. And finally, the last record that I'm going to talk about is Isolee's Allowance. More understated, minimal. This is more like a melancholy melody that you would, you know, typical of what you would expect from Isolee. Around this point in the night, you could see Digweed was starting to show his head in the booth, and you could see that he was up there, but he hadn't started playing yet. And kind of just to tie the whole thing in, when it got to when Digweed actually came into the booth, the sound had been suppressed and low at a certain level. I'll say it was at 60 or 65% max volume. Naveen drops DJ Bone, I think it's, or maybe it's D-Tron. I can't remember. It's one of those two. And the track was called Life Soundtrack, Radio Slave Mix. And it was at that point that they cranked the volume like all the way up. And you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this club sounds this good. Like Output had perfect sound. It had a no cameras policy, so you didn't have anybody standing there with their cell phone trying to record anything. And they took it as far as if they saw you taking pictures or recording anything, they would ask you to show them your phone and delete the picture, because they didn't want to encourage it, and they didn't want people distracted with like messing with their phones. They just wanted it to be all about the music. On top of that, they had speakers set everywhere in the club so that no matter where you were sitting, if you were in the back room, if you were on the side of the main room, you could hear everything clearly. So to hear this whole system just come into bloom for that Life Soundtrack song and like just be standing in the middle of the floor, like James and I held our ground right there at that L-shaped couch the entire night, and it was just beautiful. It was one of the most perfect moments of my life and one of the highlights of my clubbing career. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Also, check out the Last Night at Output Digweed 6-pack CD and also the quadruple vinyl. There's some really cool stuff on there. I might feature that in my next episode. To Naveen G, thank you so much for that opening set. Thank you for posting it on your SoundCloud. And I'm sure hours and hours went into preparing for that night. And man, it paid off. So thank you very much, Naveen. I hope you're doing well. Take care, guys. See ya.